"Old lady, why the hell are the cards blocked?" Brian screamed into the phone, with that desperate voice you only hear when someone is truly panicking. I was there, sitting in my kitchen, holding my morning cup of coffee while looking out the window. The sun was coming in gently, creating those long shadows I liked so much in the mornings. But this time, something was different. That call I had been waiting for so long. "Mom, are you listening to me? The cards are not working. I am in a very important meeting and—" "Oh, a meeting?" I interrupted, taking another sip of my coffee. "How interesting." "Brian, a meeting where exactly?" His silence was more revealing than any answer. I could hear background noise, voices, tropical music, the unmistakable sound of waves crashing against the sand. It was definitely not the noise of an office. Well, it is an off-site meeting. Look, Mom, I need you to unlock the cards urgently. Paula and I have important expenses that— Is Paula with you in that meeting? I asked, feigning innocence while slowly stirring my coffee. Yes, of course. Her. She is also working on this project. Liar. My 32-year-old son lying to me as if he were a teenager who came home late. But I already knew the truth. I had known for 3 days exactly where they were and what they were doing with my money. Everything had started on Monday morning. I was in my usual routine, making breakfast, organizing the bills, reviewing bank movements as I do every week. I've always been meticulous with money, a habit I developed after years of managing the household alone. Brian knew it. That is why he never questioned when I checked every penny. But that Monday, something caught my attention. A transaction of $5,000 at the airport, then another of $3,000 in what seemed to be a jewelry store. Afterward, a hotel charge that made my eyes open wide. Four Seasons Resort Maui. At first, I thought it was a mistake. My son had told me he would be working all week on an important project in the city. He had even called me on Sunday night to tell me he could not visit me as always because work had him very busy. Mom, this project can change my career. He had told me with that convincing voice he used since he was a child, give me a week to concentrate completely. And I, like the trusting mother I always was, told him not to worry, that I understood perfectly. But there I was, looking at those charges in Hawaii while my son was supposedly working 20 minutes from my house. Brian, I said finally, interrupting his desperate explanations, do you know what day it is today? What? Mom, I do not have time for riddles. I just need you to— It is Thursday, I continued. Thursday morning. And according to my records, you have been spending my money in Hawaii since Monday. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could hear Paula whispering something in the background, probably asking him what was happening. Mom, I can explain. Oh, I am sure you can, I said, getting up to pour more coffee. But not now. Now you are in the middle of that very important meeting. Remember? Mom, please, just unlock the cards. When I get back, I will explain everything. It is complicated. I walked to the window and looked at the perfect day spreading out before me. The flowers in the garden were in full bloom. The birds were singing, and I had all the information I needed to act. Do you know what is the most painful part of all this, Brian? I asked, keeping my voice calm. It is not the money. It is not the lies. It is that you really thought your 66-year-old mother was stupid enough not to notice. Mom, I never— Have a good day at your meeting. Son, I hope the weather in Hawaii is perfect for working. And I hung up. I stood there, holding the phone in silence. For the first time in days, I smiled. It was not a smile of happiness, but a smile of someone who finally holds all the cards. For years, I had been the mother who always said yes, the one who lent money without asking when they would return it, the one who believed every excuse, every promise, every "I will pay you next week, Mom." I had raised Brian to be independent and responsible, but somewhere along the way, something had gone terribly wrong. My phone started ringing again. Of course it was him. Hello, I answered with the same calmness as before. Mom, do not hang up on me. Please, just listen to me for 5 minutes. I am listening. Okay, yes, we are in Hawaii, but it is not what you think. Paula. Paula was very stressed with work, and I thought a vacation would do us good. We were going to pay you back all the money when we returned. With what money, Brian? Another uncomfortable pause. Well, with my next paycheck. The project I am working on. The project that does not exist. I interrupted him. I already called your office. You took the whole week off without notice. Your boss is furious. I could hear him cursing under his breath. Mom, just give me a chance to fix this. Unlock the cards for now. And when you return, you will find many surprises waiting for you, I said, looking at the documents I already had prepared on the kitchen table. But for now, enjoy your honeymoon with my money. It will be the last time. This time, when I hung up, I turned off the phone completely. The silence in my house after hanging up that phone was strange. It was not the comfortable silence I was used to, but something denser, charged with an energy I had not felt in years. It was as if I had finally woken up from a very long dream. I sat back in my favorite kitchen chair and opened my laptop. Yes, at 66 years old, I handle technology better than my own son, something that always annoyed him when he was younger. Mom, you do not need to learn those things, he would tell me. How wrong he was. I logged into my online bank account and reviewed every transaction from the last 5 days. The list was impressive and pathetic at the same time. Monday, flights to Maui, 2 first-class tickets, $3,200. Monday, private transfer from the airport to the hotel, $250. Monday, 4 Seasons Resort. Maui, presidential suite for 5 nights, $8,500. Tuesday, Mama's Fish House Restaurant, dinner for 2 with premium wines, $420. Tuesday, Maui Pearl Gallery Jewelry Store, a pearl necklace, $1,800. Wednesday, private helicopter tour, $900. Wednesday, couples spa at the hotel, $600. Thursday morning, attempted purchase at a beachwear boutique. Transaction denied. Total spent so far, more than $15,000. My money. The savings I had gathered working as a secretary for 40 years, watching every penny, buying clothes on sale, cooking at home instead of going out to restaurants. But what hurt me most was not the money itself. It was the ease with which they had decided to steal it from me. The naturalness with which Brian had lied, as if it were the most normal thing in the world to deceive his mother to finance his romantic getaway. I took a picture of the screen with my phone and saved it in a folder I titled Evidence. Then I printed all the statements. If I was going to do this, I would do it right. My next step was to call Brian's office. I needed to confirm what I already suspected. Good morning. This is Margaret Vance, Brian Vance's mother. Could I speak with him, please? Oh, Mrs. Vance, replied the receptionist with an uncomfortable tone. Brian has not come to work all week. He said he had a family emergency and needed time off. A family emergency? I asked, feigning surprise. Yes, that was what he reported on Monday morning. Is everything okay? Mr. Gordon is quite upset because Brian had important deliveries this week. Everything is perfectly fine. I lied. I just wanted to confirm something. Thank you. Family emergency. That was me, apparently. The emergency was that he needed my money to go on vacation with his wife. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen, processing the magnitude of the betrayal. It was not just the lie, it was the elaboration of the entire plan. Brian had thought of every detail. The excuse of the important work, the call on Sunday to seem convincing. He'd even used my medical emergency last month as justification in his office. I remembered that conversation we had 3 weeks ago. I had to go to the hospital for some dizziness. Nothing serious, but Brian had shown himself very worried. He even stayed to sleep at my house to take care of me. Mom, you have to take care of yourself more, he had told me while cooking in this very kitchen. I cannot imagine my life without you. What a convincing actor my son turned out to be. I opened my contact book and looked for the number of Arthur Hayes. my trusted lawyer. Arthur had handled all my legal matters since I was widowed 10 years ago. He was a serious man, efficient and above all, discreet. Arthur, this is Margaret. I need to see you today if possible. Of course, Margaret. Something urgent? Let's say I need to protect my assets from someone I trusted too much. I understand. Can you come at 3 in the afternoon? I will be there. After hanging up, I decided to do something I had not done in years. Investigate my own family. I opened Facebook and Instagram on my phone. Brian and Paula always posted everything they did, from what they ate for breakfast to where they went shopping. What I found left me speechless. Paula had posted a photo from the airport on Monday morning, her in a mint green dress smiling next to Brian with a pink suitcase in the background. The caption read, "Surprise. My love is taking me to fulfill my dream of seeing Hawaii. Surprise vacation. True love. Maui." The photo had 63 likes and 22 comments from friends asking how they could afford such a trip, considering both always complained about economic problems. Paula had replied to one of the comments, "When you have a husband who truly loves you, he always finds a way to make your dreams come true." I kept scrolling. Photo on the plane, photo at the hotel, photo on the beach, photo eating lobster, photo with the pearl necklace they had bought with my money. But the one that impacted me most was one Paula had posted yesterday evening. She and Brian toasting with champagne on what looked like the terrace of their suite, with the ocean in the background. The caption read, "Thank you, life, for giving me a husband who always finds a way to surprise me. Sometimes dreams come true when you least expect it." The comments were worse. "How lucky you are, friend. My husband has not even taken me to the movies this year. Brian is the best son-in-law in the world. Your mother-in-law must be very proud of him. It shows he really values you. How romantic everything is. My mother-in-law must be very proud of him." If they knew the truth. I took screenshots of every post and added them to my evidence folder. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I checked the privacy settings of their accounts to ensure they could not delete anything before I finished gathering proof. At 12:30, my phone rang again. It was Brian again. "Mom, please, we have to talk. I am listening. Look, I know you are upset and you have the right to be. But this is not what it looks like. Paula has been very depressed lately, and I thought a vacation." "Depressed?" I interrupted him. "That is why she needed a $1,800 pearl necklace. For the depression." "How do you know about—" "Mom, have you been checking my movements?" "Brian, they are my movements. It is my money, my account, my card that you gave to your wife without my permission. I thought you would not mind. You have always helped me when I needed it. Helping you is one thing. You stealing from me to go on a honeymoon is something very different. It is not theft. It is a loan. I am going to pay you back every penny. With what money, Brian? You just lost your job." What are you talking about?" "I called your office. Your boss is furious. Apparently, lying about family emergencies to go on vacation is not a policy they appreciate much in your company." The silence on the other end was long and heavy. "Mom, what did you do?" "I did not do anything." "Son, you did all this yourself, but I need that job. We have debts, the apartment. You should have thought about that before spending $15,000 in 5 days. 15,000. It cannot be that much." "Oh, but it is. And you keep counting because every day you stay there, every meal you order, every activity you do comes out of my pocket. Mom, please understand. We just wanted—" "What I understand is that my 32-year-old son decided it was easier to steal from his mother than to work to pay for his own vacation." I hung up again, but this time I did not turn off the phone. I wanted him to keep calling. Every desperate call was more evidence of his panic. I looked at the clock. It was 12:45. I had enough time for lunch before my appointment with Arthur. I made a simple sandwich and sat down to eat while mentally organizing everything I was going to tell the lawyer. For the first time in days, I felt completely in control of the situation. Arthur's office had always seemed to me a place where problems had solutions. The walls full of law books, the solid wood desk, everything breathed seriousness and trust. That afternoon, sitting in front of him with my folder of evidence, I felt like a woman with a plan. Margaret, in 30 years of practicing, I have never seen such complete documentation of a family case, said Arthur, reviewing the screenshots and bank statements. You have gathered enough evidence for several legal processes. I just want to protect what I have left, I replied, and ensure this does not happen again. I understand perfectly. We are going to prepare several documents. First, an immediate revocation of any access Brian has to your accounts. Second, a legal document stating that any money taken without authorization constitutes misappropriation. And third, Arthur paused, looking at me with that expression he put on when he had a particularly astute idea. Third what? A completely new will with very specific conditions about inheritances and bequests. I left Arthur's office at 5 in the afternoon with a sense of power I had not experienced in years. The documents would be ready the next day, and I had already set in motion the plan to protect not only my current money, but also my future. When I got home, I found 7 missed calls from Brian and 3 text messages, each more desperate. Mom, please answer. We need to talk urgently. Paula is crying. This is becoming a hell. I decided not to respond yet. Instead, I prepared a quiet dinner and sat down to check social media again. What I found this time was even more revealing. Paula had posted a new photo, but the tone had changed completely. It was an image of her alone on the beach, in a white dress that looked expensive, looking toward the horizon. The caption read, "Sometimes the perfect vacations have their unexpected complications, but everything happens for a reason." The comments had started to arrive. Is everything okay, friend? Trouble in paradise? Where is Brian in this photo? But the comment that caught my attention most was from someone named Becky. Girl, I told you that mother-in-law of yours has always been very controlling. Mommy's boys never change. Becky. I investigated a little more and discovered she was Paula's best friend, a woman who apparently had very strong opinions about mothers-in-law in general and about me in particular. I kept reading Becky's comments on Paula's previous posts. Good thing Brian is finally defending himself against his mom. It was time he set limits with that lady. Your husband has to choose, his mom or his wife. Defending himself against me? Setting limits? Me, who had raised Brian practically alone after his father died, who had worked double shifts to pay for his studies, who had lent him money every time he needed it without charging interest or setting deadlines. My phone rang. This time, it was not Brian. It was a number I did not recognize. Mrs. Vance? This is Paula. Her voice sounded different, smaller, more vulnerable than the self-confident woman I had always known. Hello, Paula. Ma'am, I need to talk to you. Brian is very upset. He does not understand why you blocked the cards. Do you understand? There was a long pause. I told him maybe he should have talked to you first, but he assured me you would not have a problem with us using the money for this trip. He assured you? Yes, he told me you always supported him in everything, that you had never denied him anything when he needed it. Interesting. So Brian had lied to her too, to a certain extent. Paula, let me ask you something. Did you know Brian lied to his boss about a family emergency to go on vacation? What? No, he told me he had requested normal vacation time. And did you know he lost his job today because of that lie? The silence on the other end was deafening. He lost the job? Completely. His boss confirmed it to me this morning. My God. Mrs. Vance, I did not know any of this. Brian told me everything was arranged with his work, that you had approved the use of the money. What? Her voice broke. That it was like a family vacation paid for by you, because you loved me very much and wanted us to be happy. There it was, the complete lie. Brian had not only stolen from me, but he had manipulated his own wife into being an accomplice without knowing it. Paula, How much did you really know about the money you have been spending? I thought it was money he had saved or that you had given him. He manages all our finances. I only see the cards he gives me and trust that everything is fine. Have you seen the amount you have spent? Not exactly. He tells me not to worry, to enjoy. But how much have we spent, ma'am? More than $15,000 in 4 days. The gasp I heard on the other end of the phone sounded genuine. 15,000. Ma'am, that is more than what we earned together in 3 months. How is it possible that Brian... Ask your husband? Paula. Mrs. Vance, I did not know. I swear by what is most sacred that I did not know it was so much money, nor that it was your money, nor that Brian had lied at work. I thought... You thought you were lucky to be able to afford a vacation like that. Yes, she whispered. I thought we had finally gotten out of our economic problems. I realized Paula was being sincere. She was a victim of Brian's lies as much as I was, just in a different way. Paula, where is Brian now? He's on the beach, walking. He has been like that all afternoon, very nervous, making calls. He says he is going to fix everything, but he does not explain how. Do you want some advice? Yes, please. Prepare to come home immediately. This is going to get much worse before it gets better. What do you mean? I mean my son got into a much bigger problem than he imagines, and you, unknowingly, are involved too. After hanging up with Paula, I sat reflecting on what I had discovered. Brian was not just a thief, he was a manipulator. He had deceived everyone. Me, his wife, his boss. He had built a web of lies so elaborate that even he himself had probably started believing parts of it. My phone rang again. It was Brian. Mom, I just talked to Paula. Did you tell her I lost my job? I told her the truth. Brian, something you apparently do not know how to do. Mom, you are ruining my life. I am not ruining anything for you. You are doing it all by yourself. Why did you have to call my office? Why could you not keep this between us? Because I needed to verify how far your lies went. And apparently, they go very far. Mom, please, we can fix this. We will come back tomorrow. I will pay you back every penny. I will look for another job. With what money are you going to come back tomorrow, Brian? Your return flights are scheduled for Sunday, and they are non-refundable tickets that cost another $3,000. How do you know? Because I reviewed all the reservation information. I have access to everything. Remember? It is my card. Mom, then help us return. Unlock the cards just for the flights tomorrow. So you can keep spending my money on expensive meals and souvenirs before leaving? We are not going to spend any more. We just need to come home. Brian, you created this problem. Find a way to solve it yourselves. Do you want us to sleep on the street? I want you to learn that actions have consequences, something you apparently never learned. I hung up and immediately blocked his number. I had already heard enough pleading for one day. That night, before going to sleep, I posted something on my own Facebook. It was rare for me to post something personal, but I felt it was necessary. Reflecting on family and trust. Sometimes the people we love most are the ones who hurt us most, but they are also the ones who teach us most about our own strength. I did not mention names. I did not give details. But in less than an hour, I had 20 comments from friends supporting me and asking if I was okay. Among the comments, I found one from my neighbor, Betty, not Paula's friend, but another Betty who lived on my street, Margaret. You have always been a strong woman. If you need to talk, you know where to find me. I decided it was time to have that conversation. The next day in the morning, I woke up with a mental clarity I had not had in weeks. It was Friday, and according to my calculations, Brian and Paula would be going into complete panic. Their return flights were on Sunday, and without access to my cards, they would have to find a way to survive 2 more days in one of the most expensive hotels in Maui. While making my morning coffee, the doorbell rang. It was Betty, my neighbor, with a tray of freshly baked sweet bread. Good morning. Margaret, I saw your post last night and thought maybe you needed company. Betty was 72 years old, had been a teacher for 40 years, and had that wisdom that comes from having seen everything in life. Besides, she had raised 4 children as a single mother, so she understood about sacrifices and ungrateful children. "Come in." "Betty, I just needed to talk to someone sensible." I told her the whole story while we had breakfast. Every detail, the lies, the money, the social media posts, the desperate calls. Betty listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally with that expression she put on when a parent came to complain about their child's grades. "Margaret," she said finally, "do you know what your mistake is?" "My mistake? You have been too good a mother." I stared at her, waiting for her to explain. A good mother teaches consequences. A mother who is too good avoids them. Brian never learned that stealing has consequences because you always rescued him before he hit bottom. But I just wanted to help him. And look where your help led him. At 32 years old, he still thinks Mom's money is his money. She was right. For years, every time Brian had economic problems, I appeared with a solution. I never charged him interest. I never set strict deadlines. I never let him face the true consequences of his bad financial decisions. "What would you do in my place?" I asked her. "Exactly what you are doing, but I would go further." "Further how?" Betty smiled with that smile that reminded me why students respected her so much. "Margaret, you hold all the cards. He is stranded in Hawaii without money, without a job, completely dependent on you to come home. This is the perfect moment to teach him the most important lesson of his life. What do you suggest? That you make him work to return. Literally." She explained her idea. Instead of simply punishing him, I could turn this into a real learning opportunity. Make Brian find a way to earn the money for his return tickets, face the consequences of his lies with his employer, learn the real value of money. But what if he cannot? What if he really stays stranded? "Margaret, your son is a grown man. If he can plan a luxury vacation in Hawaii, he can find a way to come home." After Betty left, I stayed thinking about her words. She was right. For years, I had been teaching Brian that there would always be a safety net, that Mom would always rescue him. It was time for him to learn to fly alone. My phone rang. It was Arthur. "Margaret, the documents are ready. Can you come sign them? I am on my way." In Arthur's office, I signed 3 important documents. The first officially revoked any access of Brian's to my bank accounts. The second established that any money taken without express written authorization constituted a loan with 15% annual interest. The third was my new will. "This last document is particularly interesting," explained Arthur. "It establishes that any heir who commits misappropriation of your assets while you are alive will automatically lose their right to inheritance. Is that legal?" "Completely. It is called a disinheritance clause, for just cause, and you have more than enough documentation to justify it." I left the office with a copy of each document in my purse. It was time for the next phase of my plan. I got home and found more evidence waiting for me on social media. Brian had posted a photo from the hotel room. He looked clearly agitated and tired. The caption read, "Some days are harder than others, but everything is solved with love and understanding." The comments had started to arrive, and several were from family and friends asking if everything was okay. But the most interesting was a comment from Paula. "My love, we already talked about this. We have to be honest about what is happening." Honest? Now they wanted to be honest? I decided to check Paula's profile too. What I found surprised me. She had posted a new photo, this time from what looked like the hotel lobby. She was dressed in casual clothes, not the luxury outfits of previous days. The caption was revealing, "Learning that appearances are not everything. Sometimes reality is very different from what we think." In the comments, Paula's friend Becky had written, "What is happening now? Your last posts have me worried." And Paula had replied, "I am learning many things about my husband that I did not know, and about myself too." Interesting. It seemed Brian's lies were starting to affect their marriage too. My phone rang. It was an international number I recognized as from the hotel in Hawaii. Mrs. Vance? This is the manager of the Four Seasons Resort Maui. I have a guest here, Brian Vance, who says you can guarantee payment of his bill. How much do they owe so far? The total for the stay, including additional charges, amounts to $18,400. $18,400. They had kept spending even after I blocked the cards, probably charging things to the room. Could you specify the additional charges? Of course. Spa services, meals at hotel restaurants, mini bar, laundry service, and a special dinner in the suite last night that cost $1,200. A dinner of $1,200. While they were begging me on the phone to unlock the cards, they had been dining on lobster and champagne in their room. Sir, I am not going to guarantee any payment. If Mr. Vance cannot pay his bill, that is a problem between you and him. I understand, ma'am. Could I speak with him a moment? Of course. Mom. Brian's voice sounded completely desperate. Please do not do this to me. The hotel says they are going to call the police if we do not pay. Brian. Did you eat a $1,200 meal last night? Silence. Mom, I can explain. While you were calling me asking for help to come home, were you ordering Dom Perignon champagne from room service? It was our wedding anniversary. Your wedding anniversary is in October. Brian, it is May. Mom, please, this is humiliating. There are people watching. The manager is here with 2 security guards. Do you know what is humiliating, Brian? That my 32-year-old son steals from me to impress his wife with money that is not his. Mom, I promise you that. I do not want more promises. I want solutions. How are you going to pay that bill? I do not have a way. Our credit cards are maxed out. We have no cash. Then find a way. Sell something. Pawn something. Get a loan. Look for a job at the hotel. But do not call me again asking me to pay for your lies. Mom, you cannot leave me stranded. I am not leaving you stranded. I am teaching you to fly. I hung up and immediately called Arthur. Arthur, I need you to draft a formal letter. I want it to be in writing that Brian took money without authorization, that he has 30 days to develop a payment plan, and that if he does not do it, I will proceed legally. Are you sure you want to go that far? I have never been more sure of anything in my life. That night, while I ate a simple salad in my quiet kitchen, I reflected on what I had learned in the last 48 hours, not just about Brian, but about myself. For years, I had confused love with permissiveness, protection with overprotection. My phone received a text message from a number I did not recognize. Mrs. Vance, this is Paula. I am writing from a hotel employee's phone because Brian broke my phone in a fit of rage. I need you to know that I knew nothing about what was really happening. Brian confessed everything to me tonight. About the job, about the money, about the lies. I am devastated. I do not know if my marriage is going to survive this. I just wanted you to know I am very sorry. I replied, Paula, you are also a victim of Brian's lies. But now that you know the truth, you have to decide what you are going to do with that information. Her answer arrived 5 minutes later. I already decided. As soon as we return home, I am going to stay with my sister. I need time to think if I want to stay married to someone who is capable of lying so easily. For the first time in days, I felt sorry for someone who was not myself. Saturday morning, my house was plunged into a peace I had not experienced in years. While preparing my breakfast, I realized that for the first time in a long time, I was not waiting for a call from Brian asking for money, favors, or solutions to problems he himself had created. That tranquility broke when my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize, but with an international code from Hawaii. Mrs. Margaret Vance? This is Officer Patricia Gonzalez from the Maui Police Department. I have your son Brian Vance detained here for attempted credit card fraud. My first instinct was to panic, but I forced myself to stay calm. Can you explain what happened exactly? Your son tried to use a credit card that had been reported as stolen. When we confronted the establishment, it turned out the card belongs to his wife, but she had reported the theft because she says her husband took it from her by force. I understand. What are the charges? Attempted fraud, disorderly conduct, and possibly domestic violence depending on whether the wife decides to file formal charges. Where is his wife now? In a temporary shelter managed by the hotel for guests in difficult situations. She is cooperating with the investigation. Officer, what do you need from me? Your son says you can pay his bail and the hotel expenses. Is this correct? No, it is not correct. I am not going to pay anything. Are you sure, ma'am? Your son is quite upset. I am completely sure. My son is an adult responsible for his own decisions. I understand. In that case, he will remain detained until his hearing, which will be Monday morning. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen processing what I had just heard. Brian had not only stolen my money, but he had apparently escalated to trying to use his own wife's credit card without permission. And from what it sounded like, he had used violence to take it from her. My phone rang again. This time, it was a local number. Mom. It was Paula's voice, but it sounded different. Scared, small. Paula. Are you okay? No, I am not okay. Brian. Brian went crazy last night. When I told him I could no longer continue with this, that I wanted to go home, he took my credit card and pushed me against the wall. My God, are you hurt? I have a bruise on my arm, but I am physically okay. Emotionally, I do not know if I'm going to recover from this. Where are you now? At the hotel still, but in a different room. A social worker is helping me. Mrs. Vance, I need to tell you something important. I am listening. Brian confessed to me last night that this is not the first time he takes money from you without permission. He told me he has been doing it for years, just in smaller amounts, and that he always replaced it before you noticed. My world wobbled. Years. Had he been stealing from me for years? How long, Paula? Since we got married 5 years ago. He says at first he only took $100 or $200 when we had emergencies, but over time it became easier because you never noticed. And did you know this? No. I swear I did not know anything. I thought he was very good at managing money, that is why we always had enough for emergencies. I never imagined he was taking it from you. Paula, I need to ask you something else. Did you ever notice anything strange in my behavior toward you? As if I suspected something? Now that I think about it, yes. Sometimes you seemed confused when Brian mentioned expenses we had made. And once I heard you ask him why his statements did not add up, but he always had an explanation. What kind of explanations? He said you were starting to have memory problems due to age, that it was normal for you to get confused with numbers, that we should not worry because he could help you manage your finances. The son of a bitch. Not only had he been stealing from me for years, but he had been preparing the ground to make me look like a confused old woman if I ever realized. Paula, did Brian ever mention anything about my will or my inheritance? Yes. A few months ago, he said you had commented that he would inherit the house and all your bank accounts when you passed away. He said that is why he did not worry much about saving, because in the end, everything was going to be his anyway. He told you I had said that? Yes. And he said since he was going to be responsible for all your money eventually, it was not wrong for him to use it now for emergencies, as long as he replaced it. Everything fit now. Brian did not just see me as his source of emergency money, but as his retirement plan. He had been planning to live off my money not just now, but forever. Paula, what are you going to do now? I do not know. The social worker says they can help me get a return flight, but it would have to be through social services because I have no money. Brian spent everything we had on our credit cards in the first days of the trip. Everything? Yes. Apparently, he took cash advances at the hotel casinos. He lost more than $3,000 playing, thinking he could win enough to pay everything we owed. Brian had hit rock bottom completely. Theft, lies, domestic violence, and now gambling addiction. Paula, I am going to help you come home, but I am not going to help him. What do you mean? I am going to buy your return ticket, but Brian stays where he is until he solves his own problems. Mrs. Vance, I cannot accept that. Yes, you can. You are a victim of Brian's lies as much as I am. The difference is you did not know the truth. Now that you know it, you have to decide what to do with your life. I already decided. When I return, I am going to divorce him. Are you sure? Completely. A man who is capable of stealing from his own mother for years, lying to his wife, losing his job for being irresponsible, and then assaulting me when I confront him, that is not the man I married. Or maybe he was and I was blind. After hanging up with Paula, I immediately called a travel agency and bought a return ticket for her on the Sunday night flight. I also called Arthur to inform him about the new developments. Margaret, this changes everything, he told me. With this history of domestic violence and years of misappropriation, we have a very solid case if you decide to proceed legally. What do you recommend? That you document everything Paula told you, that you put her in contact with me so she can give testimony if necessary, and that you prepare for the possibility that Brian attempts all kinds of emotional manipulation when he returns. If he returns, he will return. Margaret, he has no money, no job, and probably nowhere else to go. The question is, are you going to be ready to receive him? That night, while dining alone in my kitchen, I reflected on the last 5 days. It was incredible how my life had changed completely. A week ago, I was a mother worried about her son's excessive work. Now I was a woman who had discovered that same son had been systematically stealing from her for years. But for the first time in a long time, I felt powerful. I was not a victim of circumstances, but someone taking control of her own life. My phone received a text message from Paula. Mrs. Vance, I am at the airport waiting for my flight. I do not know how to thank you for helping me. When I get home, I am going to tell your lawyer everything if you want. Brian deserves to face the consequences of what he has done. I replied, Fly safe, Paula. Your new life is waiting for you. Another part of me knew the hardest part was still to come, Brian's return. Monday afternoon, while watering the plants in my garden, I heard a taxi stop in front of my house. I did not need to look to know who it was. I had been waiting for this moment for 3 days. Brian got out of the taxi with a single small suitcase, very different from the luxury luggage he had left with. He looked haggard, unshaven, with the same wrinkled clothes he had probably worn for days. But what caught my attention most was his expression. He was no longer the confident son who always had an excuse ready. He was a defeated man who had finally realized the magnitude of what he had lost. He walked slowly to the front door, but I continued watering my roses as if I had not seen him. Mom, he said with a hoarse voice, can we talk? Sure, I replied without looking at him, but out here. You are not coming inside my house. Mom, please sit on those steps and let's start talking. Brian sat heavily on the porch steps with his head in his hands. I finished watering my plants and sat in my porch chair, keeping a safe distance between us. I suppose you already know everything, he said finally. I know more than you think I know, but I would like to hear your version. What for? Your mind is already made up. Brian, you have been stealing money from me for 5 years. Do you think this started with the trip to Hawaii? His head snapped up. He looked at me with those eyes that had been so effective at manipulating me for decades. But this time, they did not work. Paula told me everything. The small loans you took without permission, the cash advances you replaced before I noticed, the lies about my memory to justify discrepancies in my accounts. Mom, I never wanted to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me? Brian, you were systematically stealing from me while telling me you loved me. You made me feel like I was losing my memory when I questioned my statements. And now I discover you plan to live off my inheritance as if it were your personal pension plan. I never said that. No, of course you didn't tell me. You told your wife. Well, your ex-wife, because she already filed divorce papers. Brian turned pale. Paula asked for a divorce? This morning. Apparently, discovering that her husband is a thief, a liar, and an abuser was enough for her to make that decision. I am not an abuser. It was just a fight. I was desperate. Brian, you put your hands on your wife to steal her credit card. That is called robbery with violence. And then you tried to use that card, forging her signature. That is called fraud. The authorities said they are not going to proceed with charges because Paula did not want to proceed with the complaint. But that does not mean it didn't happen. Brian stood up and started pacing the porch. Mom, I know I made mistakes. I know everything got out of control, but I am your son. You cannot just abandon me. Abandon you? Brian, for 32 years, I have given you everything I could. I paid for your college working double shifts. I lent you money every time you needed it. I helped you with the down payment on your apartment. I gave you money for your wedding, and you paid me back by stealing from me for years. I always replaced the money. With what money did you replace it, Brian? Where did the money come from that you used to replace what you stole? His silence was revealing. Ah, right. You robbed Peter to pay Paul. You took from my savings account to replenish my checking account. You used my credit card to make payments to my bank account. It was all my money moving in circles while you lived above your means. Mom, I can change. I can get another job. I can go to therapy. What for, Brian? So that in 5 years you are back doing the same thing? No, this time is different. I lost Paula. I lost my job. I almost went to jail. I have hit bottom. No, Brian, you have not hit bottom yet, because you still think I am going to rescue you. I got up from my chair and walked toward the front door. Brian followed me. Where are you going? I'm going to get something you need to see. I returned with the folder of documents Arthur had prepared. I handed it to Brian. What is this? Your new reality. The first document revokes any access you have to my bank accounts. The second establishes that the money you took without authorization constitutes a loan with 15% annual interest, payable in monthly installments of $500 starting next month. Brian opened the documents and his face started getting paler. $21,000 with interest? That is the amount you have taken without authorization in the last 5 years, according to the investigations I did with my accountant, and that only counts what I could document. Mom, I cannot pay $500 a month. I do not have a job. Then get a job. Get 2 jobs if necessary. And where am I going to live meanwhile? Paula kept the apartment. That is not my problem. Brian, I am your son, and I am your mother, not your personal bank. For the first time in the conversation, I yelled at him. Years of frustration, of feeling manipulated, of worrying about a son who was actually stealing from me, came out in that scream. Brian, I told you to get a job. I told you to save money. I told you to stop living above your means. But it was easier to take from Mom's account, right? I thought you would understand. Would understand what? That after working 40 years to save for my old age, I would not mind if my son spent my savings on luxury vacations. I did not know it was that much money. Lie. You knew exactly how much money it was. You knew what you were doing was wrong. That is why you did it in secret. That is why you replaced the money before I noticed. That is why you told me I was losing my memory when I questioned the discrepancies. Brian sat back down on the steps, this time with the documents in his hands. And the third document, what is it? My new will. What changed? Everything. It includes a clause that says any heir who commits misappropriation of my assets while I am alive automatically loses their right to inheritance. Brian lifted his head abruptly. Are you disinheriting me? I am protecting myself from you stealing from me again. If you learn the lesson, if you pay what you owe, if you demonstrate you can be a responsible son, we can review the will in the future. But until then, my money goes to charities when I die. Mom, you cannot do this to me. I am your only son. Brian, you decided to treat me like your unauthorized income source. Now I decide to treat you like what you proved to be, someone I cannot trust with my money. Brian stood up and walked toward me with that expression he put on when he was a child and wanted to convince me of something. Mom, we are family. Families forgive each other. Families help each other. You are right. And I am helping you. I am helping you learn that actions have consequences. I am helping you become a responsible adult, and I am helping you understand that love does not mean allowing someone to hurt you. And if I cannot pay, and if I do not get a job, then you will have to find a way, like any normal adult. Mom, please, just let me stay here a few days while I look for work, just until I get established. No. Brian, you are not going to live in my house. You are not going to have access to my money. You are not going to manipulate me anymore with your story of a needy son. Then what am I supposed to do? What all responsible adults do when they hit bottom. Start from below and build your life with your own work. Brian looked at me for a long moment, and I could see the exact moment he realized this time it was not going to work. That tears, pleas, promises of change, none of that was going to make me change my mind. Are you really going to leave me on the street? I am leaving you free so you learn to fly alone, as I should have done years ago. Brian stood on my porch for several minutes after our conversation, as if waiting for me to change my mind. But I remained firm, seated in my chair, looking at him with the same determination I had developed during these revealing days. Okay, he said finally, picking up his suitcase, but when I leave here, do not expect me to return. Brian, my door will be open when you are a different man, when you can look me in the eyes and tell me you understand what you did wrong and that you have truly changed. Until then, you have my phone number and the documents you need to start paying your debt. I watched him walk away down the street carrying his suitcase, probably heading to the bus stop. For the first time in years, I did not feel the urge to run after him to offer a solution. Instead, I felt something I had not experienced in a long time. Peace. That night, Paula called me from her sister's house. Mrs. Vance, did Brian return yet? Yes, he came this afternoon. I gave him the legal documents and explained the new rules. How did he react? Like a child discovering his tantrums no longer work. He tried all his usual manipulation techniques, but this time I did not fall for any. I am glad you stayed firm. Ma'am, there is something else I need to tell you. Tell me. While I was at the hotel shelter, I met a social worker who helped me a lot. She suggested I contact other people who might have been victims of financial abuse by Brian. Apparently, this type of behavior rarely is limited to a single person. What do you mean? Well, I started remembering strange things, like the times Brian came home with extra money and said his boss had given him a bonus, or when suddenly we could afford things I knew were not in our budget, but he always had an explanation. Do you think he stole money from other people too? I am not sure, but the social worker gave me the number of an organization that helps victims of financial abuse. She suggested you contact them too, because they can probably help you with legal and emotional resources. I wrote down the number Paula gave me and thanked her for the information. After hanging up, I stayed thinking about the possibility that Brian had been stealing not only from me, but also from other people. The idea made me sick to my stomach. The next day in the morning, I called the number Paula had given me. A very kind woman named Gloria attended me and explained the services they offered. Mrs. Vance, what you describe is a very common pattern of family financial abuse. Unfortunately, the most frequent victims are older parents who've been manipulated by adult children for years. Is it really that common? More than people imagine. Often, as in your case, victims do not realize they are being financially abused because the abuser is very skilled at creating justifications and making the victim feel guilty for doubting. What do you recommend I do now? First, you already did the hardest part, recognizing the problem and taking measures to protect yourself. Second, I recommend you document everything you can remember about unauthorized loans, suspicious transactions, and any pressure you felt to give money. Third, I would consider reporting the case to the authorities. Reporting it? After all this time? Ma'am, financial abuse is a crime. It does not matter if the perpetrator is your son. If you have sufficient evidence, you can proceed legally to recover your money and prevent him from doing the same with other people. That conversation opened my eyes to a reality I had not fully considered. I was not just a mother disappointed by an irresponsible son. I was a victim of a systematic crime that had lasted years. That afternoon, my neighbor Betty came to visit me with more sweet bread and much curiosity about how the confrontation with Brian had gone. He left, I told her while serving coffee, and he is not coming back until he learns to be a responsible adult. How do you feel? Strangely good. For years, I felt exhausted after every interaction with Brian, as if he had sucked all my energy. This time, I feel powerful. It is because you finally set clear limits. Children need limits regardless of the age they have. Betty, did you ever suspect something was not right with Brian? Honestly, yes. It always seemed strange to me that a 30-year-old man needed financial help from his mother so frequently, and the way he talked about your money as if it were part of his natural resources. You never told me anything? Margaret, when someone is in an abusive relationship, family or romantic, you cannot convince the victim from the outside. The victim has to reach their own conclusions. All friends can do is be there when the person is ready to see reality. Abusive relationship? Is it really that serious? Abuse is not always physical. Margaret, Brian was manipulating you emotionally to access your money, making you feel guilty when you questioned his requests, and making you doubt your own perception of reality. That is psychological and financial abuse. That night, I called Arthur to tell him about my conversation with the Financial Abuse Victims Organization. Margaret, they are right. What Brian did constitutes several crimes: misappropriation, financial abuse of an elder, and possibly fraud. You have enough evidence to proceed criminally if you decide to do so. What would that imply? It would mean filing a formal complaint with the police. Brian could face criminal charges, not just civil. He could go to jail. Do you want me to send my own son to jail? I want you to understand all your options, and I also want you to consider this. If Brian is capable of systematically stealing from his own mother for years, what do you think he would do with a victim who was not family? That question kept me awake all night. What if Brian was stealing from his job too? What if there were other victims? Was it my responsibility to protect those potential people by reporting what I knew? Wednesday morning, I made a decision that would change everything forever. I called the local police station and asked about the process to report family financial abuse. Mrs. Vance, you can come whenever you like to file the complaint. Bring all the documentation you have: bank statements, contracts, communications, any evidence of financial abuse. What happens after I file the complaint? A formal investigation is opened. If we find sufficient evidence, criminal charges are filed. In cases of financial abuse of elders, the district attorney takes these cases very seriously. Before taking the final decision, I decided to make one more call. I dialed the number of Brian's former employer. This is Margaret Vance, Brian Vance's mother. Could I speak with Mr. Gordon? Of course, ma'am. One moment. Mrs. Vance, I am very sorry for what happened with Brian. I never expected he would be capable of lying so blatantly about a family emergency. Mr. Gordon, I need to ask you something important. Did you ever notice discrepancies in the handling of company money when Brian worked there? There was a long pause. Ma'am, is there something specific that makes you wonder that? I just discovered Brian has been stealing money from me systematically for years. I wondered if he could have done the same at his job. Mrs. Vance, I cannot give specific details due to company policies, but I can tell you we are doing a complete audit of all the accounts Brian managed during his time here. Did you find something? We are still investigating, but yes, there are some irregularities that concern us. That was the confirmation I needed. Brian was not just a problematic son stealing from his mother. He was a serial delinquent who had likely victimized multiple people. I hung up the phone and grabbed my purse. It was time to go to the police station. The police station was a place I never thought I would visit for personal reasons. While waiting in the room, I looked at the other people who were there and wondered how many of them would be in situations similar to mine. Detective Sarah Miller, who attended me, was a woman of about 40 years with a serious but understanding expression. Mrs. Vance, I have reviewed the documentation you brought, and I can tell you that you have a very solid case. The bank records, the social media screenshots, the testimony of your former daughter-in-law, everything points to a systematic pattern of financial abuse. Detective, do you really think this merits criminal charges? Ma'am, in the last 5 years, your son stole more than $21,000 from you. That is a serious crime. Furthermore, the fact that he used psychological manipulation to make you doubt your own memory constitutes aggravated emotional abuse. What is going to happen now? We are going to issue an arrest warrant. We have sufficient evidence to proceed without the need for more investigation. Do you know where your son might be currently? I have no idea. Since he left my house 3 days ago, I have heard nothing from him. Do not worry. We will find him. In cases like these, they generally do not take long to appear. While driving back home, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. Mom? It was Brian, but his voice sounded different. Smaller, more desperate than ever. Brian, where are you? In a homeless shelter downtown. Mom, this is horrible. I have no money, I have no job, I have nowhere to go. What do you want me to do? Please, Mom, just one more chance. Let me come home. I will get a job, I will pay you everything. Brian, I just came from the police station. The silence on the other end was absolute. What did you do? I filed a formal complaint for financial abuse. There is an arrest warrant with your name. Mom, you cannot do that to me. I am your son. Brian, for years you were my thief before my son. It is time you face the consequences. Please withdraw the complaint. I will do whatever. I will pay everything. I will go to therapy. It is too late for promises. Brian, besides, it is not just with me. Your former employer is also investigating irregularities in the accounts you managed. What? How do you know that? I called to ask. Apparently, stealing had become your way of life, not just a problem with me. Mom, if they arrest me, my life is over. No one is going to hire someone with a criminal record. You should have thought about that before deciding stealing was easier than working. I am not a criminal. I just took borrowed money without permission. Brian, you took money for 5 years without returning anything. You lied about emergencies. You manipulated your wife. You assaulted a woman. You stole at your job. What do you call that if not being a criminal? The line stayed silent for a long moment. Mom, are you really going to let them arrest me? Brian, I am not going to arrest you. Your own actions already did. I hung up and immediately blocked the number he had called from. That night, while dining alone in my kitchen, I reflected on what I had done. For the first time in years, I did not feel guilty for not rescuing Brian. Instead, I felt as if I had finally taken control of my own life. My phone rang. It was Paula. Mrs. Vance, I just spoke with Detective Miller. She asked me to testify about what Brian confessed to me in Hawaii. Are you going to do it? Yes, I think it is the right thing. Besides, she told me something I did not know. Apparently, Brian also stole money from his job. Yes, they confirmed it to me today. Ma'am, do you feel bad for having filed the complaint? What do you think? I think you did what any sensible person would do after being victimized for years, and I think you are probably saving Brian's life. How so? Because if he does not learn now that his actions have serious consequences, eventually he would do something even worse, and the consequences would be much greater. Paula was right. By protecting Brian from consequences for so many years, I had actually been preparing him for an even bigger failure. Friday morning, Detective Miller called me. "Mrs. Vance, we arrested Brian last night. He is in custody awaiting his bail hearing." How did he react? Well, first he tried to deny everything. Then he tried to minimize it, saying it was just a family problem. Finally, when we presented the evidence from his job too, he broke completely. What does that mean? He confessed everything. Not just what he did to you, but also the misappropriation at his previous employment. Apparently, he had been taking money from client accounts for more than a year. My God. "Ma'am, your son was on a very dangerous path. If you had not taken action when you did, we probably would have ended up investigating him for much more serious crimes. What happens now? His lawyer is negotiating a guilty plea. He will probably receive a prison sentence of between 6 months and 2 years, depending on his cooperation, and if he agrees to participate in rehabilitation programs." After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen to process what I had heard. My son was going to go to jail for months, possibly years, and it had been my complaint that had started this whole process. For the first time since this whole situation began, I cried, not for Brian, but for the mother I had been for so many years. The woman who had confused love with permissiveness, who had believed protecting her son from consequences was the same as helping him. That afternoon, my neighbor Betty came to visit me. Without saying a word, she hugged me when I opened the door. "I heard the news," she said simply. "How are you?" "I do not know. Sad, relieved, guilty, proud, all at the same time. That is normal. You did something extraordinarily difficult, but completely necessary. Do you think I did the right thing? Margaret, for years you watched your son self-destruct and take you with him. Finally, you had the courage to say enough. That does not make you a bad mother. It makes you a brave woman. And if jail makes him worse instead of better, that risk always existed. But what you knew for sure is that continuing to allow his behavior was definitely not going to improve him." That night, alone in my house, I looked around my quiet and orderly home. For the first time in years, there was no drama, no emergency calls, no pleas for money, just peace. I opened my laptop and checked my bank accounts. Everything was in order. My money was safe. My savings for old age were intact. My future was protected. Then I did something I had not done in years. I planned something for myself. I opened a travel website and started looking at cruises for seniors. If Brian could spend $15,000 of my money in 5 days in Hawaii, I could perfectly well spend $5,000 of my own money on a real vacation. I found a 2-week cruise through the Mediterranean leaving in 3 months. It had cultural activities, lectures, excursions to historical sites. It was exactly the type of trip I had always wanted to do, but had never been able to afford because I was always lending money to Brian for his emergencies. Without hesitating, I made the reservation. For the first time in decades, I was investing in my own happiness instead of financing someone else's irresponsibility. My new life had officially begun. 6 months after that Friday that changed my life forever, I found myself sitting on the deck of a cruise ship in the Mediterranean, watching the sunrise over the coast of Santorini. In my hands, I had a cup of Greek coffee, and on my face, a smile I had not felt in years. The trip had been everything I had dreamed of and more. During 2 weeks, I had visited museums in Rome, walked through the ruins of Pompeii, explored the markets of Istanbul, and tasted wines in Tuscany. But the most important thing was that I had done all this without worrying about emergency calls, without constantly checking my phone for desperate messages, without feeling guilt for spending my own money on my own happiness. My phone vibrated with a message. It was from Paula. "Mrs. Vance, I hope you are enjoying your vacation. I just wanted to tell you I signed the divorce papers yesterday. Officially, I am free. I also wanted to thank you again for helping me see the truth. My new life is being better than I ever imagined. I replied, I am very happy for you, Paula. Enjoy your freedom. You deserve it. During these months, Paula and I had developed an unexpected friendship. She had testified at Brian's trial, had started therapy to process the emotional abuse she had suffered, and had gotten a better job at a marketing company. Without the debts Brian constantly accumulated, she had discovered she could live very well on her own salary. My phone vibrated again. This time, it was my neighbor Betty. Margaret, a letter arrived for you. It looks official, from the penitentiary center. Do you want me to open it? No, keep it. I will read it when I return, I replied. I knew it was probably a letter from Brian. During the last 6 months, he had written to me 3 times from prison. The first 2 letters I had thrown away without reading. The third I had read, but it had been more of the same. Promises of change, pleas for forgiveness, attempts to make me feel guilty for abandoning him in his most difficult moment. Brian's final sentence had been 18 months in prison, followed by 2 years of probation and the obligation to pay restitution to both me and his former employer. He also had to complete a rehabilitation program for gamblers and therapy for impulse control disorders. His former employer had discovered he had stolen more than $30,000 from client accounts during the last year he worked there. In total, Brian owed more than $50,000 in restitutions. Detective Miller had explained to me it was very unlikely Brian could pay those amounts in the near future. The important thing, she had told me, is that now there is an official record of his criminal behavior. If he ever does something like this again, the consequences will be much more severe. I got up from my chair on the ship's deck and walked to the railing. The Aegean Sea stretched infinite before me, shining under the morning sun. It was impossible not to think about how different my life was now compared to 6 months ago. Then I had been a 66-year-old woman living constantly anxious about the next financial crises of her adult son, doubting her own memory, feeling guilty every time she spent money on herself. Now I was a free woman who had regained control of her life and her money, who had learned to set healthy limits. Mrs. Vance? I heard a familiar voice. It was Helen, a 70-year-old Argentine woman I had met the first day of the cruise. She had become my adventure companion during the trip. Good morning. Helen, ready to explore Santorini? More than ready. But first I have to tell you something. Remember I told you about the problems I had with my son last year? Yes, you told me he had also had problems with money taken without permission. Exactly. Well, after hearing your story, I decided to take action. Yesterday, I spoke with a lawyer by phone from Athens. Helen told me that, inspired by my decision to take control of my situation, she had decided to formally confront her son about the money he had taken from her accounts for years. Like me, she had discovered the problem was much more serious than she had initially imagined. Your courage gave me courage, she told me. For years, I thought it was normal for adult children to depend financially on their parents. But you helped me understand the difference between helping and being abused. We spent the day exploring the white villages of Santorini, buying souvenirs, taking photos in the most picturesque places. But what I enjoyed most was simply the feeling of freedom. The freedom to spend my money without guilt. The freedom to enjoy without waiting for an emergency call. The freedom to simply be myself. That night, during the cruise farewell dinner, the captain asked some passengers to share their most memorable experiences of the trip. When it was my turn to speak, I said something that surprised myself. This trip not only took me to beautiful places around the world, but it took me back to myself. I learned it is never too late to take control of your own life, regardless of the age you are. The applause that followed filled me with a warmth I had not felt in years. 2 days later, I was back in my house in our city, but something had fundamentally changed. My home felt different, quieter, more mine. I had rearranged some furniture while I was away, Betty had supervised the workers, and now my living room had a reading corner with a new chair and a perfect lamp for reading in the afternoons. I found Brian's letter on my kitchen table, where Betty had left it. This time, I decided to read it. Mom, I know you probably do not want to hear from me, but I need to write you this letter. I have been in therapy here in prison, and my therapist is helping me understand what I really did. Not only did I steal money from you, I stole your peace of mind, your trust, your tranquility. I made you doubt yourself when you were right all the time. I have been so focused on my own desperation that I never thought about what my actions were doing to you. I am not asking you to forgive me, because I understand that is going to take time, if it ever happens. I just want you to know I am finally starting to understand the damage I caused. When I get out of here, I am not going to approach you until I can show you with facts, not words, that I am a different person. I love you, Mom, and part of that love means respecting the space you need from me, Brian. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I did not throw it away this time, but I did not feel the urge to respond immediately either. It was Brian's first letter that really sounded as if it came from a place of genuine understanding instead of manipulation. Maybe with time, therapy, and a lot of personal work, Brian could become the man I had always hoped he would be. But that was his responsibility now, not mine. That night, I prepared a simple dinner in my quiet kitchen. I put on soft music, lit a candle, and poured myself a glass of the wine I had brought from Tuscany. While I ate, I made a list of all the things I wanted to do in the coming months. Painting classes, an art history course at the community college, maybe join a book club. For the first time in years, my future was full of possibilities that did not involve rescuing another person from their own mistakes. My phone rang. It was Helen, my new friend from the cruise. Margaret, how is the readjustment to normal life going? Very well. Different, but very well. And you? Same. Hey, would you like to accompany me to a lecture on female empowerment next week? It is about women who have taken control of their lives after 60. I would love to. After hanging up, I sat in my new reading chair with a cup of tea and a book I had bought in Rome about the history of Renaissance art. Outside, the sun was setting, creating those golden shadows I liked so much. For the first time in years, I breathed in peace. My new life was just beginning.